Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, 1 minute at a time. In this, our 5th season, we are looking at Joe Johnston's 2011 film, Captain America, The First Avenger. I'm Andy Nelson from the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network. Today we're talking about minute 68, which begins with Steve and Bucky heading up the stairs to the Gantry, and ends with Bucky stepping onto the Gantry over the fiery factory floor. Back on the show, we have Andrew and Joe Darowski. Hello!
Hello.
Hello.
We are talking about escape in this minute. Both of our parties are trying to get the hell out of this building that is about to go up. Let's start with Steve and Bucky as they say, let's keep going up. Let's go up and see what we can do up there. There's a door on the other side of that gantry. That looks like the perfect way to get out of here.
If the building is collapsing around us, keep going up, right? That's the strategy that they're going to employ.
Apparently,
Is their plan to get across and then go through, go to the elevator that they just saw someone use? Or
well, they do see a door. We did see at the very end of the last minute there is a door weirdly placed. I don't know why, but it's on a little platform at the end of that gantry. I'm not exactly sure what that door would be used for. We were talking about, exit signs before. If anything, that door does have a red blinking light over it. So I guess maybe that's for Steve. Hey, that must be a way out. I don't know. I don't know why that's the thing that they say. Let's do that. That seems like the safest option we have. Let me take this sick man and we're gonna, very carefully walk across this gantry over to that door.
Poor Sebastian Stan having to act this. It's okay, now act like you're, malnourished and you've been tortured a little bit, but also go up these 3 flights of stairs.
Right.
And so he's just hunched over and he's swinging his arms loose. I'm man, it'd be so much easier if he could just look athletic and, be physical with this.
I think it's really interesting how these kinds of action sequences, there's so much of it that when you're in the movie theater watching it the first time, you're just propelled by the action and you just go along. But then when you stop to talk about them 1 minute at a time on a podcast, you're hold on, what is the motivation for them to keep going higher? Why is this the right plan for them to take at this point? And I don't remember ever thinking that in the movie theater. It was just kind of oh, okay, they're going that way. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, because there's this gut reaction to fire, hot, down there. Let's get away from it. The fastest way is to go up away from the fire, which, in the scope of things doesn't make sense. And I suppose people in a burning building probably have that same sense. If we can get to the roof, maybe we can get out of here or we can find a window to jump out of or something like that. But I don't know.
But you're always supposed to go down when there's a fire, get on the floor so you're not inhaling the smoke. You can see better, all that sort of stuff. That's
what you're supposed to do. And I just feel like it's that flight or fight response that they have here where it's just I don't know, it's almost like this reaction that they have that almost seems, I don't know. It seems a little more like a primordial reaction, they're just hot down there. Let's just move in the opposite direction and get away. And it just, it doesn't, there's no brains in the process that they're going through here. And I don't know, as we watch it, I do find this sequence largely frustrating and very designed just to have a moment between our superhero and our supervillain on a catwalk over fire.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just looking exactly as I scrub through the girder that they're going to try and move across, and there are just why is the question.
Yeah, right.
That kind of keeps coming up to me.
It's so strange. And there's catwalks. We had that catwalk. I mean, the catwalks go along it, but I would think that there are also some other catwalks that cross, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'd like to think there are.
This is a really long building. There's got to be other catwalks.
Yeah, right? I mean, it wasn't that one switch that Zola flipped didn't retract every single catwalk in the entire thing, I wouldn't think. Maybe it did.
Yeah,
who knows?
They're just all gone. Or maybe one of them blasted the controls and they can't extend them anymore. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I don't know. It's frustrating that they go through this. It's just designed to kind of create this moment for us. But we'll come back to Steve and Bucky and what they're up to. Let's for now jump into the elevator where we have Zola and Schmidt. Is Zola he seems even more timid now. Like the way that he says his line here about like, sir, we're going to the roof. What about me? Where will I sit? I mean, he is so like timid here. Is it just because of the red face?
I think that's the thing that's like unnerving him. So he's like much more awkward about it.
Yeah.
Why do they split up? Why does the Red Skull take the plane thing and send Zola to use his car? The car has 2 seats. They could just drive out of there.
Yeah, it looks like it has 3 seats when he hops into it. Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, there's something in the back. So like,
yeah. Right. Why does he feel he needs to fly away? Yeah, I don't know.
Don't they end up in the same place?
I feel like he just wanted to use this thing.
Well,
that was really it.
I think this, the filmmakers wanted him to use this, right?
Yes.
Also, there's this very odd piano riff when he hands over the keys to the car. Like it's kind of a sad piano kind of thing.
It's almost like where the car has theme music that's supposed to cue us like the car's coming back, but it's like, no, we don't have this.
But it's a very odd, specific, like everything else cuts out, and now we get like a piano, like da da da. I'm like, why did this piano or not piano, violin? Why did this come in?
I'll have to look at the beginning and see when the car first shows up. If there is a theme, maybe Silvestri was actually trying to build a car theme into this that I didn't notice before. But that would be funny if the coupe had its own theme.
I don't know that it needs one.
No, I don't think so. I do like that when he gives the keys to the car. I don't know. It strikes me funny. It strikes me, one, it seems like he kind of forgot for a moment that Zola was with him. And when Zola says, what about me? He's like, oh, yeah, I forgot you were here. All right, fine. Take the car. Like, there's something funny about the way that happens. And then when he gives his car key to Zola, that makes me laugh because it is a huge key for the car. Like, it's as extravagant as the car itself. And he also has his own Hydra keychain for it. And it's just like everything.
The keychain.
It's like the Hydra branding. Even the elevator button panel has a Hydra brand on it.
The car has the Hydra hood ornament as well there.
Mm-hmm.
It is fantastic. The lengths that Hydra goes to, a secret organization to brand themselves everywhere.
His belt buckle, right? That's another one that we've seen.
His belt buckle, you're right. The big patch on his sleeve, like it is everywhere.
There's a big Hydra symbol on the side of the what's the name of the device that Red Skull's about to climb into?
He's going to climb into the if I don't know if I can say this right, but the Triebflügeljäger.
Okay, well that has a Hydra symbol on the side as well. Again, for secret organization, they really are labeling a lot of things.
They definitely are. Yeah, it is. I want to talk about that in a sec, but yeah, this the idea that he's going through so much branding for his secret organization does make me laugh to no end. And I know at this point it still is kind of like this Nazi division. So maybe they weren't trying to be as secret yet. And maybe after this, when everybody thinks they went down with the Nazis, that's when the secrecy really begins. Mm-hmm. I guess I can see it in that capacity. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, we've seen the coupe before. We see Zola hop in and drive away, but let's talk about this vehicle, this plane that Schmidt hops into. It is a Triebflügeljäger, if I'm saying that right.
Very well done.
Real quick, if we're not going to come back to the car, this car is awfully tall. Because Zola has to really climb it, and he really has to
oh my goodness,
he has to throw his suitcase up to get it in, and then he's really got to start climbing.
When he's throwing his suitcase in, the car is above his head.
Well, and Toby Jones is a small person, but they did design this car to be ridiculous.
This is a huge car.
Yes,
this car is absurd.
It is absurd,
and
very much so.
And I kind of love it because it's just so overdone. It's so long. There's so many, I don't know, engine vents. There's extra headlights and everything.
It is a little bit, we've talked a lot about, or not a lot, but we've talked a number of times about comparing Schmidt to the evil Kermit in Muppets Most Wanted, where I'm number one, you're number two, we're criminals at large, but I'm at larger than you. That's kind of his mindset with everything. It's just it just needed to go a little bigger.
Constantine.
Yeah.
Constantine, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So if we weren't going to talk about the car again, I just wanted to point out that Toby Jones has to like step up to the level of his knee to get onto like the step that gets him into the door.
So what is the height difference between Toby Jones and Hugo Weaving? Because we get the shot of them when they're in the elevator standing side by side, and Hugo Weaving is just towering over him. But I didn't know if that was about like the empowerment of him losing the mask and now he is the Red Skull, and they want that visual to be even more intimidating, so they lifted him up more, or is there that much of a height difference? Does anyone know?
Toby Jones looks like is 5'5",
okay,
and Hugo Weaving is 6'2", so he is legitimately
that is substantial.
9 inches taller.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is quite a bit. So yeah, I don't think they even needed to use any apple boxes for that here.
And for Hugo Weaving, like that's tall in Hollywood.
Yeah,
at 6'2".
Yeah, right. Yeah, they should put him up next to Tom Cruise at some point. Let's see, Chris Evans is 6'0", so he's just a couple inches smaller than him.
I mean, it works so well for the visual of these two next to each other. And even like the little sneer that Hugo Weaving gives as he looks at like when Toby Jones is like, what about me? And he's like looks down and drops the keys into his hand. Like there's just enough of a sneer of disdain for this little man that's next to him.
Well, and it's not even like, it's almost like he's not so much worried about Toby getting, or about Zola getting out of here. It's more about, oh, you know what? I want my car. That's a great car. You right. Take my car out of here, please, and no scratches on it. Like that almost seems like more his reasoning here.
Yeah, if his car wasn't there, I don't think Red Skull would have given a second thought to what was going to happen to Zola. He just would have gone and gotten into his flying machine.
He would have said, goodbye, doctor. Got and hop in. Yeah, absolutely. And also before the flying machine, the building, interestingly, the elevator has buttons for -3. So we know it goes 3 levels below ground. And then we have a 0 level, which I guess is the ground level, and then up to level 7 and Dach, which is the roof. So, I mean, it is a big factory. We've seen it on the outside. But weirdly, when I saw it from the outside, I actually thought it was probably more like a lot taller than just 7 stories.
Okay, well, when yesterday, for our listeners, we were talking about how far the mask was floating down over these explosions. And I guess they still have to go up a little bit to get to where they're at. So they weren't at the full, 7th story. They're not on the roof yet when they threw the mask down, but they were maybe 5 stories up from the ground level.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess there's a European thing about like the ground floor being 0 and then the first floor is actually the next floor up. So I guess that's a thing. So. Yeah, so I guess the 4th floor, which is where they were, is kind of like the 5th floor.
5 stories.
Okay. Yeah, 5 stories up. So, but still, even that, it still seems a little high. We'll talk about that again when we get to Steve and Bucky here in a minute. I want to talk about this Triebflügeljäger. It translates to wing fighter, or what is the other name for it? Thrust wing hunter is the other name for it. This was what and I guarantee this is why they wanted to include it in the film, why they wanted him to escape in it, because this was actually a concept aircraft that the Germans were working on in the 40s during World War II as a defense against the Allies with their bombing raids. It was designed to take off vertically, sitting on its, they had the tail sitter interceptor design, and the whole idea was that they didn't need airfields with it. It could just take off vertically, fly up, and then they could zip around in it and do what they needed to do. Really interesting. And then they just, they never were able to, they got to the point where they were testing in wind tunnels, but never got past that because obviously the war did not go their way. But that's largely the whole idea. But the actual name of it is the Focke-Wulf Triebflügel, which I don't know if Fock and Wolf were two of the people who were working on the design for it, or the manufacturing company. Actually, I guess it is the manufacturing company. Focke-Wulf Flugzeugbau. Oh, I'm terrible at this. But they were a German manufacturer during World War II. So that is this, and this I find it to be such an interesting thing. And we are going to get other examples of this. The one that we see here at this point in the film is pretty much specifically designed just to kind of fly up and out. It's kind of like an escape vehicle, as we see Schmidt kind of turn it on and pilot it straight up to escape from here. We'll see versions of this later in the film that they are using to that they'll have bombs on the front, and those are the ones that are flying out of the Valkyrie. But that's the Triebflügeljäger.
That pronunciation. I'm impressed. I tip my cap.
We have some listeners who comment on our German periodically as we're going, so I know they're going to have things to say when we get to when they get to this episode.
Well, I just want you to know, whatever they say, to me that was perfect.
Well, thank you.
I like seeing it. It feels, absurd comic book, kind of thing and everything. In this, even though it's based on real stuff, which somehow I don't know if I like that it's actually based on real stuff. It looks like I can make the sense of it in my head as I look at it. It's like, okay, it's got propellers, but they're being fueled by a rocket on the end of the propeller. Right, that's what's making it spin instead of a rotator
rocket
in the
powered
middle
rotors,
of the propeller,
basically.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. It feels like, I don't know, at some point someone would have to like explain the physics to me of like, okay, so if we put engines on the ends of these propellers and the engine goes, it spins the propeller, and then the propeller creates lift. It's like, can't you just put an engine pointing down at the ground? And I know, I'm sure there's like a physics of like how much thrust you're going to get in each different way. But it's like, we kind of ended up just pointing engines down at the ground for like rockets.
Right.
So I don't know, is this like an efficient way to provide thrust through a propeller?
I mean, for me, I like that this is inspired by something that they were really trying to develop, because the fantasy stories that use Nazis as the bad guys like to take something real about the Nazis and then just turn it up or make it act, like their interest in, supernatural lore, like Hellboy, Indiana Jones, Captain America. Like, we're all leaning into that aspect of it. And in this case, they're leaning into some of the technology that they were trying to develop and just making it successful for the visual flair of a comic book movie. And so it feels like it's kind of in that piece of like taking this seed of something real about the Nazis and their plans and just turning it up a little bit for the fiction of these kinds of movies.
Yeah, and I think that's largely what they were doing here, because otherwise, I mean, as we were saying, like, there's no logic for having Schmidt escape this way. Like, it would have been totally make more sense for the two of them to stay low, hop in the coupe, and just drive out on the opposite side of the factory away from where all the escaped POWs are battling all the troops. But instead, it's like, hey, I can see somebody saying, did you know that the Germans were designing this thing? It looks totally like something out of a comic book. Hey, let's put it in the movie. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of threw it in here. And
the other thing feels like, and I don't know, I'm trying to Google right now. It feels like this was an era when Perlmutter was still in charge of a lot of Marvel decisions, and a lot of his eye was towards the toy lines. And I'm wondering if there was ever a toy release of something like this. Which, because it feels a little bit like when, the G.I. Joe cartoon introduced a new vehicle that got a weird amount of screen time in one episode. And then it's in
in
the next, Christmas season. There it is.
Right. Yeah, we've talked about that even just like with Heroes when they return for a sequel. It's like, well, now they need to have a new outfit because you need to have some other new toy version of him that you can sell. So,
yeah,
it's that same mindset. Yeah, I don't know if they ever did sell this vehicle since it's used so limited in here, but I still would imagine that some people would find it kind of a fun little thing to have on their shelf.
Yeah, I'm not seeing an immediate result on that. So if ever it was in a discussion, it looks like it never would have reached.
Joseph, what was your search term for it?
Well, I've done a few different. At the moment, I've got Captain America, the First Avenger, Red Skull vehicle toy, which does bring up the car.
Yeah.
So the car.
Did you try Triebflügeljäger though? That's the real question. Yeah, I don't know. It's such an interesting vehicle. I just love the design. But the other question that I had was like, this seems like so hard to get into. Like, it's like Boba Fett's ship. It's like any sort of vehicle where you have to get in and then immediately like sit in a position where you're laying on your back. It just is like, that's so hard.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. It seems very difficult to
Yeah, wait a
to
second.
navigate yourself that way.
Like, did he like shimmy his legs in and like slide his back down the back of the seat?
Well,
Because he's facing straight up.
Right.
I mean, Joe Johnston, he did some design work for Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
I think we're entering the Millennium Falcon gunner stations in A New Hope kind of discussion here. Like, wait, the physics of how it seems like they're just looking up at each other, but the guns are what?
Well, and actually, didn't he design Boba Fett's ship? Now that I'm thinking about it,
I think he did.
yeah. So I think that definitely would make sense if he had been the one who had designed it. So,
And then
interesting.
So Red Skull flies away. I like the look of it flying up. That feels like very realistic.
Yeah.
And then I assume it like tips forward and flies to its destination.
Right.
I have a hard time envisioning it tipping backwards to touch down.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it was something that they never perfected. So there's probably a reason in the film that they don't bother showing that to us.
Like, is it just like is there like ballast and weight that you have to shift, forward and backwards?
Yeah, it does make you wonder a lot of things about how they do that. I mean, I don't know. I could read a lot about kind of the specifics of the description of it because it sounds like they did figure a lot of that stuff out, but it also just seems like a lot of that's just over my head as far as what specifically is happening, as far as how the ailerons are moving and
you got to get Jim O'Kane in here for that discussion. Actually,
for those specifics, there you go. Yeah, he'll understand all of that tech. So they escape. So we see Zola drive out in the coupe, and then we do get a shot, as we were saying, of Schmidt flying off in the Triebflügeljäger, and as he's taking off, which is kind of fun. I mean, I do enjoy seeing it, that kind of like the little spinning propellers as it's going up into the sky. In the script, there was a moment where you actually have Merida out in the forests as the troops are escaping, and they actually see it fly overhead. And we actually then cut to Schmidt seeing Zola driving away on an isolated road. Do you feel like that was needed at all? Like, do you feel like at this point we've been so long away from our escaping troops that it would be nice to kind of have a moment where we have kind of a connection to everything again?
So yeah, like narratively, not to like give us a sense of Red Skull and Zola know where they're going, but as like more touching base that these people got out of the exploding factory.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that would be good. Even if they're just watching it take off, I think that's a useful cutaway.
Yeah, I don't think we need Zola making eye contact with Red Skull up in the
whatever it's called. No, but it was interesting because I wasn't really thinking about the fact that, like, gosh, it has been quite a while since we see the troops. Last we saw, I mean, we did see them blast the tower that Steve had passed earlier in the truck bed, but it we just haven't had any moment with them in since that, and so it would have been at least a way to have some form of a connection at that point. But oh well. The other question I have is apparently Schmidt doesn't mind blowing this place up. Did he have plans for his troops? I mean, there were plenty of Hydra troops around. I mean, I know he knows that they're fighting, but for anyone who managed to get away, what were their plans?
I don't think Hydra's big on people getting away. That's not really their MO throughout all of this. It's kind of fight to the death, and then next base will have twice as many people somehow.
I guess. But then the other thing is, a lot of these people, this is the first time where we actually see all of these troops fighting with the Tesseract tech, and we're going to see what happens with that. But it seems like, I don't know, for somebody who is so conscious of, I need to blow up my entire factory so that no one can get their hands on it but me, to then just say, oh, but don't worry about those troops who were using it. If they die, oh, well, we'll just not worry about that tech. I don't know.
Yeah, so that tech would be lying around still. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking. Because, and we've already seen them picking it up and using it. It's like they're now actively using this tech of his that he isn't being that protective of. So I don't know. It's strange the way that he kind of operates. And I guess he's just so. Is it because he's so convinced of himself as kind of like this next to gods that he's not worried about it?
Yeah, it's so interesting that he so quickly is like blowing everything up, and then he is escaping. But there's no cue for us as an audience to answer this question that you have. Like, what about all the troops that have the tech that wasn't destroyed?
Yeah,
you don't want them to die and leave their tech lying around.
Yeah, right.
So it should have been either no warnings given and everyone blows up, or we've got some escape route that is provided.
It seems like that would have been a helpful thing to have. Like either all of anyone who has Tesseract weapons, when he flips those switches, like there's that one switch and he chose to flip it, and every piece of Tesseract tech then blows up. Like it self-detonates so that tech can't be accessed by anybody because it got out into the world. Like something like that. Or like all the troops. Like we see a shot of the troops watching him flying away, and they say, crap, let's get out of here. And we actually see them do something. Like, I don't know. I feel like the way that resolution happens is very... just kind of, I don't know, a little wishy-washy. It's like they couldn't come up with a decision as to how to resolve this whole thing.
Yeah.
And that may be one reason why we don't see that cutaway, because they don't want us to have a reminder about the rest of the fight that's going on, because we've become so solely focused on Red Skull and Captain America, right? That this is the fight that we're now following.
Yeah, and I guess there is a very specific point. We'll talk about that more in the next couple minutes about that as well, about kind of some of those specific decisions that they do make as to how they're going to show the resolution of this whole thing. And then, okay, so now we're up at the top with Bucky. He's getting across this gantry. Let's send the sick one first. And it's I don't know. It's very funny. Bucky just, again.
You first. You test it out.
Yeah, you test it out. See if this thing will hold us. But again, Bucky is looking terrible. He looks really terrible, very haggard.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait to talk about tomorrow's minute. Any last thoughts about anything in this minute from either of you?
I'm good on this minute.
No, I think there's, like I said, you feel the like propulsive action that like is moving you, things are happening, but when you stop to take it apart, maybe this isn't as strong as some of the other action sequences in this film, or in other Marvel films, because you do start to wonder about motivations, like why are Captain America and Bucky on this girder up here? What about all the other fighters that are outside? Why didn't they take just the car? And the narrative that we're given doesn't answer all of those questions very well.
Yeah. Lots of questions with this one. But
at the same time, like I will go back and say, I remember enjoying this sequence in the movie theater and not having some of these questions when I wasn't taking it apart 1 minute at a time.
Yeah, exactly. We're all like, damn, did you see that thing that Red Skull just flew away in? That was cool.
Yeah.
That's where we all were. So, yep, I'm right there with you. All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me again for this minute 68. Remind everybody again where they can tune into what you two are up to.
We host a couple podcasts. I host the Protagonist Podcast, where each week we look at a great character and a great story, and you'd find that in any podcatching app, I think. Most of them, at least. I don't know. There's always new ones, and I'm not always sure how to make sure we're on there. But if you do a search for the Protagonist Podcast, you should be able to find it.
And I'm on Disney Animation Minute Essentials, which should be on all of those same places.
All those same places, and we will have links to them in the show notes, so check those out. And we will be back tomorrow to talk about Minute 69, so thank you both again, and until next time, True Believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Spread the News by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.